A
live.
lot of
We're live. So you
okay.
can hi, good afternoon. It's great to see you. It's great to see. Well, we don't really see everyone, but we know that you're here watching, right? We can feel you. So welcome, Scano. Hello, Uncle, Grandmother Renee. You were saying?
To be here. No, I was saying as we go here, it's okay to jump in with questions because it's a lot of material to go through. And it's okay if we dwell on one thing because I'll go over it quickly because this is very broad connections about how we understand everything. And quite often we have a lot of questions in between. So I encourage those people that are listening to this broadcast to do the same thing. As you have your questions, put them down in the chat and then we'll try to get back to it. So there'll be a couple of areas that I will go into in a little bit of depth, just so you can see how each of these things tie together. Because the the morals are everywhere, in a sense that what we're experiencing, especially in education, what we are not seeing in education at this point is what we call the love connection. That one's really important because I can take my fingers like this, or I can do like that, and you can see that shape of my hand. So these are all our connections. And so when we do this, we can see it has many, many branches. But the thing to be understanding is all the links in your fingers lead to your excuse me, lead to the palm of your hand. And that means this is kind of like our colonial experience. And the colonial experience disconnects everything so that each of these pieces of our hand are not in fact connected. We realize that they're connected, but what I want to do is I want to make another visual here. And this is the heart piece. And the heart piece is like this. Okay, so if we look at those two images, and if I turn my hand around like that, look at those two images, this is what we mean by the heart connection. And you can actually see a heart between your hands because then they're all connected. But notice the difference when one is like this and one is like this. It's closed, it's connected, and it has strength this way. This is how we feel those connections. So with that, we can now go to the presentation. The presentation is kind of graphics that help us understand better the big picture. So the big picture is how all of these things come together like this in our hearts first, because that's our main energy. That's the part that connects to the outer energy and the inner energy. So you can see here, even when you do that with your hand, you can feel that connected energy, and all goes around and connects and becomes a solid thing that's not just an abstract thought. So we've always had fun trying to connect with these with the online. So my screen, I'm just putting up my screen now. And where's the connector that we have?
So share, and then did you press share and now you're looking at your screen? So highlight your that PowerPoint.
Yeah, I've got okay. Highlight the PowerPoint.
Yep, tap on it, and then it should pop up, and then you press share.
Okay.
It should say, you know, where it says entire screen, window, or
Oh, yeah, I see it now.
then you tap
Okay,
that in
yeah.
the middle. Yeah. I just love that heart thing. It just made me all tingly inside. Like,
Yeah, well, I like
great.
to use graphics to explain things because it seems to be more meaningful. Okay.
And it was stronger.
It says do the copy of this presentation to the cloud to share. Is that right?
Nope. So do you have your PowerPoint open?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So then if your PowerPoint is open, you know how you have it on the bottom, then you just press share where that square is on your platform right now, your screen. Press share, and then it'll say share screen, then share screen, and then it'll say enter screen, entire screen, window, or Chrome tab. And then you tap the entire screen. And then you press share. What did you think about that heart thing, Renee, while he's working on it?
Well, our hands are our teaching tools. Just like I showed you so many things with your hands, how they're our visual aids. We remember a lot more if we do things like this. Just like I talked about the four colors, and there is one higher power. And whatever we do, however we thank them, is okay. Whatever color, red, yellow, black, and white. We all been given our instructions. And that is of PEACE. So there's a lot of ways that we can use our hands to share and teaching.
So Tehahenteh, where are you?
Yeah. I'm still trying to find how to highlight this thing.
Okay, so where you see how our screen right now, where you're sitting there, and you can see your little box, and you can see us, right? And the box under the box. And then it says mute, stop cam, mic, share screen. It's right under this where you are right now. Can you see it on your screen?
No, I got something's blocked here.
Are you looking at the screen?
Okay, now I see it. Okay. Share screen.
Yeah.
There we go.
Share screen, highlight, and share. Now that should be
there you go.
Now it should come up.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Okay. Okay, so you can see the screen now.
Yep. So
we're going to start.
Oh yeah, there you go. And then you can make it full screen as well, right? Go into if you want to.
Do you fit to window?
Yep, I believe so.
I guess. Okay, anyway, that's okay. We can see what's coming up anyway. We're back to this year where all of this started. And we've done our previous shows, or explanations, if you will, about this intelligent energy. And this is our understanding of how things are sort of in an abstraction way. In a sense here, our screen also shows all the different components of that. We have the beginning, we have the cloud in there. And so in the background, you can see how this thing the energy all came together. And that is the form that connects everything. And we also talked about the creation story, that we know that on the other side of the sky world is how we describe it. We have this, what we call the sky world, which is the upper portion, and hopefully that everyone remembers that that's where our existence was as spiritual beings, as pure light beings, as pure energy beings. And so when Sky Woman transcends from the sky world to this world, it says a whole is created in their universe, which my first impressions with that is that this is how we understand maybe the concept of the black hole in the universe, or many black holes in the universe. They say that there's one in the Milky Way as well. And science really is at a quandary right now, because the theory was put forth that we don't know whether we exist actually inside of the black hole, or if we have gone through the black hole, because that's that hole that was created in the sky world when this tree was uprooted. So that hole that she comes through is described as a tunnel here. And so she comes through this tunnel and she grabs a few things on her way down here to help her in her survival. And so if we look now at the next screen, which is this, these are the guiding principles. These are the principles that came through when we were in a time of great turmoil here in our lands, because at one time our communities, all the different nations within our communities, were all at war. And one called the Peacemaker brought this concept. And if you look straight in the very center of that, you can see where these circles all overlap. And that overlap there is the heart piece. That's the heart, and that's the part where all energy transcends from the sky world to us. It's our origin. And that origin is based in this concept of the good mind. So we'll go more into that good mind in a bit. But it has a whole series of components that makes up what the good mind is. The short version of that is probably the grandfather teachings that you've heard about. And so those and many other components of being of a good mind, when we are of a good mind, then we move towards the earth piece. And that good mind draws us together as having or being peaceful. Mm-hmm. And when the good mind brings peace, then automatically what happens is the unity of strength. It's quite often described as the good mind, peace, and power. And that's why I put down unity of strength, because the unity of strength is a better concept of power. In English, we think of power as being dominating or having a force greater than something else, but it's not that. The meaning in our mind, the meaning in this whole concept is and you notice that word that I used at the beginning, it's connected to this great intelligence. And this great intelligence says that when we're using our good mind, we automatically have peace. And when we automatically have peace, then the strength is automatically connected. And so that good mind, because we're standing up on the earth, so basically we are connected, our feet is on the earth, and our intellect, if you will, is in the air. So that's connected to the sky world. And the peace is connected to our feet, to the earth. And so those two concepts coming together give us strength when we are of one mind. And when we are of one mind, anything is possible, because this unity of strength brings us the connections. That connections means whatever we're dwelling on, whatever we're thinking about, becomes a possibility. And this is based on creativity, intuition, instinct, and all of those things that are abstract. I talked about 5 physical senses and 5 invisible senses. Well, these are the invisible senses. And that invisible senses will say that when we have an idea, to make that happen, remember, this all occurred because of thought of this intelligent energy that had a mind to extend its knowledge. So it sent us out as star beings. Star beings, in a sense, kind of like stardust, because we are much smaller in quantity, but when we bring our quantity together like the stars do, forms a cloud, and then it becomes reality, because all of those atoms form different molecule combinations in a very complex way that becomes a star. Well, that's the idea that we're talking about here. We're talking about that thought. And so when we allow the good mind to connect us to the sky world, and we ask for a certain thing, if we dwell on that and we believe that this is going to be a reality, then what we can then do from that idea, which is the thought, and we make a plan. And so that plan is how this idea can be a reality. So that plan is actually static in a sense. The idea is static, and so is the plan. Nothing really happens until we put it into action. When we put it into action, we're going to find one of 2 things. And as I mentioned before in our other presentations, we were introduced to duality a long, long time ago. And this is that duality in action. So there's 2 parts of it, the idea and the plan, but it's static until an action occurs. And one of 2 things is going to happen. Notice again, we have duality or balance. We're going to find out after we take that action into doing something about this idea, following our plan. We're going to find out, 1, it could succeed the very first time. It could succeed. The plan could be that well thought out that it could succeed the first time. And the other thing that can happen is the plan won't work. And that doesn't mean that the idea is no good. It means that we have to now go back to the plan and revise the plan and then do the action again. So here's the other duality. Every time we find out that the plan did not work, we've learned something. It doesn't mean that the idea is bad. It just means that we have to tweak the plan before the action becomes a reality. And we know in our daily lives, we have this going on all the time. We just haven't intellectualized it to see what it looks like on paper. Like this is sort of like the on paper idea of how everything that we have an idea about has this component, and those components are 3. And we must always keep in mind that overlap in the center there, because that's what we should be concentrating on to guide us. The guide there means that our heart is what should be in this plan as well. because without that component, it just becomes some sort of capitalistic idea that really doesn't have any purpose other than maybe profit or something abstract. And when we think of the monetary system, it's really not going to save us. In itself, it has no value. What has value? What has value is the earth, because that's the same as the celestial tree in that sky world. So when we look at the sky world now, the sky world is made up of many components as well. And the things that we look at is, we first look at, it says creator, but we could think of that as creation. That's the same as this substansurakoa sa wiera. And that creation then needs to be strengthened at all times for all things that go on. This is what comes from the sky world, this ceremony. And so that's why with original people, we have, depending on the nation, different kinds of ceremony. But in fact, what we have is all different perspectives. We're all in a circle. So in other words, if we look over here, we're in one of these circles here. So right now I'm talking about the sky world circle. So it comes with a responsibility. And that responsibility are the very first thing mankind was given from the universe was how to take care of ourselves, how to take care of our fellow human beings, and how to be in relationship. And I'll say relationship again, because all of this is relevant. It's a relationship. It's a relationship to this environment responsibility. And that responsibility means when we are taking care of the earth was instructed on all its many, many ways to take care of us. And so we were given this oral history. So this oral history is something that goes directly to our hearts. That's where it's recorded. And somebody will say, "Oh, let me record this so I don't forget it." Well, these are the reasons why we do the oral tradition. It's oral because we have to remember that in our hearts and how we relate to everything around us. And so this oral history then translates here to the individual components, which will go straight across that chart there over to celestial bodies. So these celestial bodies are in two duality. One's a physical and one's a spiritual. Or if you want to think of spiritual as being the energy portion of it. And you can see the physical part here, the sun, the moon, the stars, planets, the comets, and all those heavenly bodies are the physical things that we can see. And if we can see it, we can believe that they exist. Whereas on the spiritual side or on the energy side, what we see things that we are not actually able to touch. Can't exactly touch our responsibility. It's kind of a concept of how we're to be. It's kind of like the seasons. We expect the seasons to be changing from time to time. We know it's an inevitability, but we have no control over that. It relates to things like time and space. So time and space in our language are exactly the same vocabulary, which kind of supports Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. And him explaining that time and space are in fact the same thing. Well, we knew that all along. And it wasn't too long ago that I actually found a family here at Six Nations who had an uncle that Einstein conferred with all the time, which is something that I didn't really know. And I thought, gee, because when Einstein was pontificating about his theory of relativity, that was when I first got a clue as to what these concepts are all about and how they connect. Because nothing can be destroyed. All we can do is alter things. It's kind of like when you look at trees and we understand the trees and all their wonderful importance. Well, at this time of the year, we're thinking about the seeds because the trees have just gone through their stage of pollination and dropping seeds, because those seeds have all the information. It has its own creativity, and it also has all the plan of its entire life. This tree, or these new seeds, they don't all propagate. They only propagate under the right conditions. So those right conditions are, in fact, how we're thinking about it and how we're relating to it. And so when we think of time and space, it is, in fact, the same thing. And so you can see also when we go over to weather now, we have the we have the things like physical things that we know exist because we can actually feel them. We can actually feel the breeze on our skin when we go outside. It blows our hair when it's blowing really strong, and it waves the leaves. So you know the wind is active. So that's that physical part. The spiritual part are things like thunder. And the thunder, we know, is a reaction. And you could go on the net and actually see how what the thunder is. It's actually the sound that results from the thunderbolt. But this energy builds up in this column until it reaches the end of that tunnel. And when it reaches the end of that tunnel, it gives a big clap. And then what we physically see is we physically see that lightning bolt coming down. And so this all originated as pure energy. That pure energy is that spark, that flash. Sometimes the whole sky lights up in the sheet lightning. So it's all connecting. So there's that two parts there from the weather that we understand is reality and a duality as well. So the other, shall we say, material things that we see, as we see the birds, and we metaphorically use the birds. Well, actually, it's some describe it as the eagle that flies the highest. Well, I'm not really sure whether it's the eagle that does fly the highest, but we send our thoughts in that metaphoric way to the eagle because it does fly very, very high, and it has long distance. It can see details, things that we can't see with our eyes. And so we sort of relay that message to them because they're the ones that these ideas, when we are connecting with our creation, when we are in relationship with our creation, we metaphorically use the birds as the messengers because they're closer to creation than we are. And so again, we see this responsibility showing up, and that responsibility is the ceremony that we have to be in relationship. At midwinter, what we do is we address all of creation, and we ask this great intelligent energy of the universe to re-energize everything. And so we talk about them one by one, even including our ceremonies, to say that if there's something about our ceremonies that can be improved, what can we do to add to that to make it stronger, to make our connection stronger with everything? And the other things that we see here is the birds directly affect us in a physical way, because many of them were given the responsibility to be our sustenance. So we do take certain ones of these birds to become our sustenance. And so those are some of the connections in the sky world. Then in the next circle, we have our mother, the earth. And the connections here is, again, all about balance. And so we were given from the sky world these instructions of what we say, Ohanda Gari Hodekwa is one of the words that we use, which means these words are the things that come before all else. And we are given this special quality, this special vibration, this special tuning of our languages that says we're always to use our languages to be able to create these correct vibrations. So this correct vibrations then connects all of these things when we do this in ceremony. And just to share something, I was asked by the Longhouse here to do a tobacco burn, because we can't come together as a community to be able to go to the Longhouse and do a ceremony. But we can still, our ceremony, we are living in the Longhouse in a sense, because we were told that the Constitution, when it came together, when our nations formed an alliance between our different nations, we said this represents our house. The land is in fact our floor. And when we look up into the sky from horizon to horizon, what we see is the dome. And that dome stretches across all of our territories to create a metaphoric long house. So this here, Earth, is our floor, and that sky world is our dome. And we have the eastern door where the sun comes up, and we have the western door where the sun goes down. And this goes all around the world. This Earth is our home. And these are the connections we have with Mother Earth. So if we think of Mother Earth as our floor, the sky world as our ceiling, this is our home. And when we do this Thanksgiving address reminds us of our connections. So we never forget them, and we're constantly striving to make our connections stronger. When we do, and because in these times, it's really hard to fathom the strength of that colonial thought, that capitalistic thought. Remember when I had my fingers spread, that's that capitalism. It's all broken up into tiny little pieces, and they're all disconnected in that way of thinking. But when we bring our hands together and we put our hands together, we can see that heart and we can feel that connection. That's the heart connection. And that connects us to the animals here. We're just going to do these connections. Animals, the geography, there's that respect again coming back. It's all about the web of life. All these connections create a huge web, and it's connected to our health. And I'm not talking about health in just the sense of physical health. I'm talking about mental health as well. It has a much broader spectrum when we're talking about Adakari Datsara. the state of being healthy, it's not just a physical healthiness, it's a mindful healthiness. So when our mind is healthy, when we're thinking in a balanced way, when we're thinking in a way of relationships, when it's coming from our heart, that means that everything then has meaning. If we look at the physical sense, the plant life, for instance, in the grasses is we have our medicines. This ceremony of relationship, now in the grasses are the medicines. Those medicines are alive. Those medicines are flowers, they're roots, they're the barks of the trees, they're fruits. Our three relatives, we call three relatives is corn, beans, and squash. So we're talking about all the food chains. So when we're talking about all the things that we plant in our garden, corn, beans, and squash being the staples, they're not the only staple that we have. We have many others. And at this time of the year, the tobacco burn this morning was all about the seeds and blessing the seeds. Like, we don't bless the seeds personally. We direct our vibration to the seeds with our intention. Our intention is that they are hardy. They will not be bothered badly by any of the things that are surrounding us. They won't be bothered badly by the by the invasion of the insects, because we don't believe that we should be destroying our crops, destroying the land with artificial fertilizers and pesticides and all the rest of those things. It's a natural thing. And then all of these things become our medicines. So we have this medicine, not only for our heart, we have the medicine for our mind. And when we bring those things together, we connect all of these other things here. And if I go back around the circle again, I would be connecting all of these other things. So realize that we have these connections on Earth. I'll now go to the connections with the people. So again, when we're looking at people, the people now were given instructions how to be in relationship with the sky world, with Mother Earth, and with other people. And so just to know that all of these things happen in many ways. And so first of all, being of a good mind means that we were placed here on Earth for a purpose. And we were given instructions on how to live here on Earth. We were also given a free mind to choose which path to go on. And when we get off the path, that's when we end up in trouble. When we get traumatized, it can lead to that disconnect with everything. And when we're disconnected with everything, we end up with, for lack of a better word, trouble, in the sense that we are not feeling connected, we're not feeling loved, we're feeling ignored, we're feeling prejudiced against. And all of these things don't have to be true, because I did explain that in the beginning of this capsule of how we go about manifesting. So our emotions need to be balanced. Our emotions need to be coming from our heart. It needs to be our guide. It is our inner consciousness that we connect with this great intelligent energy. That great intelligent energy is all about love. And I'm not saying anything about, relationships between two people. That's a kind of like a nucleus of all of this general love that we need to be taking care. We need to be thinking thoughtfully about these things in positive ways, because if we're just clear cutting the forests, that's not a benefit in the long run. It's only an immediate benefit to those who think of the trees as a thing to be used for profit. The trees have a purpose. They have a natural purpose. And that natural purpose they go about every day. So that's about having this attitude, using the right emotions. It's our feelings, it's our intuition, and that, in fact, creates the balance. We're also instructed about history. And so we have history in many, many levels. We've got local history, regional history, national history, neighboring countries, and we have global history. So all of these things remind us of things. It's kind of like the thing that Trudeau said earlier, late, it was either Friday or Saturday. And he said that we are now going through this, being reminded of a very dark history because of the children that were found in Kamloops. Well, the fact is that is something that happened a long time ago. And it's also history is his story, because his story is now coming back to haunt those people that endorsed this, those people that carried it out, and no good will come as long as we're dealing with the negativity of it. What we as original people are striving with is we're striving to reconcile with that history, which means that it's not history. It means it's current. That history is not forgotten. That history is a real history. And in the near future, we're going to see many other children found. So that's our reconciliation. But reconciliation is another topic. That takes two sides. And I don't think we have time to talk about that today. However, the spirituality, or that energy piece that we talk about, again, readdresses this emotions that we are going through. And right now we're in a state of being re-traumatized because we are painfully reminded that our oral history has already told us about Kamloops. I knew about Kamloops back in 2007. And it seems like we couldn't get our energies together collectively or individually to be able to do anything about it because nobody believed us. It was kind of like, oh yeah, they're just saying that for sympathy or for whatever reason. We don't know. But this trauma is a real thing. And the only way that we can deal with that is through our ceremony, because ceremony brings healing. As I mentioned today, I did a tobacco burn this morning, mentioning all of these things. And that's why that particular tobacco burning this morning was over an hour long. So that ceremony is sending our collective thoughts. Even though we are in separate places, we still could collectively do this at the same time. And when we do it at the same time, it adds multiple layers of, we say, it multiplies it over and over again. The more people that are doing that, honoring. And when we trigger this by the use of belief, we believe that it's already happened because we can see it happening. See, at midwinter, what we asked for is we asked for all of these things to be re-energized. And so all we have to do is look out. I'm looking out at my lawn right now thinking I should cut the grass. Well, I can see the grass growing, basically, is growing so fast. It's real. We asked for the medicines to be re-energized, and it was re-energized for a special, very special time, because now we have this virus running around. So that belief that this will protect us will be. It's that idea, it's the making the plan, and it's also taking the action to make it reality. And this comes through in the many different life cycles. And so there's too many really to mention. But we also, under that spirituality, we talk about our dream and we talk about our seers, because some people are more sensitive to others and they're able to see things because of the signs that are around us. And it's only from the things that we're told in the past, things to watch out for. It's like right now, we just had a wonderful, wonderful rain. And I was thinking how needed it is, because that was one of the first things I noticed during the springtime is all the signs that I see right now is a prediction that we're going to have a really dry season. So that was not just a dream that we dream in the nighttime, although that has meaning as well. But that dream is the dream that we have as what is telling us what's happening. That's that unseen thing. People come in many, many ways, as in communities. And we have many, many varieties of lifestyles. And so these lifestyles are the things that we're continually working on to say, is this a correct and a proper thing to be happening? And we can analyze that by our roles. And here it says roles of men and women. Well, we really don't think of it in a sense, even though we have words for men and women. We really think about men, and that's the term that we use, are protectors, because that was the responsibility that was given to them at birth. And so not all of the men are going to be protectors in the sense of being warriors. The men are protectors in many other ways. In other words, they're the ones that go out fishing. It's a dangerous thing. They're the ones that go out hunting. That's a dangerous thing. But they're doing this for our protection. So it's the youngest and the strongest ones and the most talented ones that are selected to be the protectors. And so on the other side, we have now women, and it's really not a respectful term in English, men and women. And not a respectful term because it doesn't acknowledge all the people in between those two spectrums. So as of late, I've been hearing all about the different pronouns that people use to describe themselves and their sexual orientation. Well, it's not about sex. It's about responsibility. It's about this lifestyle of knowing what our responsibility is and fitting where we're both best needed, and how the community of people around us, when we don't see our talents, it's the community that points them out to us, because it's easier to not judge, but to recognize in other people what their strengths are. Sometimes they don't even realize what their strength is. But when we do that, that's that caring that we do. And we say, like, I think you'd really be good at this. Why don't you try that? And that's basically how I came to be doing what I'm doing right now, because it was the community that asked me to do this. And so that spreads out. So when we're talking about women, what we're saying is we're saying mothers. And so if you're female, you have that potential to be a mother, to be that portal that brings in new life. And so that's the reason there's great respect goes to our mothers. So I'm going to use the word protectors and mothers because that's inclusive of all those shades of sexual preference in between. And that comes out in the way how we our responsibilities falls through our careers sometimes, our vocation, or our calling. And remember that, people say, oh, do this and you can get a job, do this and you can get a job, and go do this and you can get a job. When the fact is, what we really need is we don't need a job. What we need is an income. And we need to be able to feed our children and protect them. And so if we think in terms of not needing a job, but needing an income, then it changed the whole perspective of how you can use your responsibility and your talent to make this a better place. We do this through governance. We do it through treaty. And hopefully that the dominant governance of this country takes the treaties more seriously, because right now they're doing everything they can to even take that away from us. The fact is, we have our influencers, and those negative things are our influencers, and those influencers come to us in many, many shapes and forms. Those influencers come to us in the sense of alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and all of those things that draw us away, draw our attention away from the reality. The reality is, this was all laid out for us with our original instructions. So that's your choice. If you're going to be distracted by the influencers, you're going to be consumed by the influencers. The influencers are going to be your intoxicants. Those intoxicants have a spirit of their own. And when we lean in that direction, they take us over and they bring no good. So know that that is happening. We're connected in other ways under kinship. So we have our immediate family that we know as being blood brothers and sisters, and cousins and so forth. But we understand it more as the extended family. So generally speaking, when we're talking about somebody that we respect, it doesn't matter what their age is, we call them uncle. And so it goes with the female side as well, or in other words, our mother's side. And the mother's side is also extended family in the sense that anyone that we respect in the mother's side, we talk about them as being our aunties. And so there's that relationship. We are related. It's called an extended family. And that's how we understand our relationship. And we also understand our relationships with all the rest of creation as well. We are interdependent in the sense that when we realize that we go and we plant the corn and we look after the corn, eventually we'll be able to harvest the corn, dry the seeds for the next season, and use the rest as our sustenance. This is the relationship. And there's a word that we have for crows. And we say radinoskos. And that means that they didn't plant the corn, they didn't take care of the corn, they didn't reap the corn, they just came to the corn and took a kernel of corn. Because there's honesty in that word radinoskos. And that's where our term for theft comes. So somebody who didn't put anything into it comes and simply takes it without giving back. And so that leads us at the bottom of the kinship with our clan system, more relationships. Our clan system is a system all of its own. It's unique. And this clan system, as a matter of fact, spreads right across this continent with our systems. There are other systems that are not original people who also have a clan system. So we're not the only ones with a system of how we govern ourselves, how we think about ourselves, and how we interact. We're looking at communication now. We need to be doing exactly the kind of thing that I'm doing, in the sense that you can't do this responsibility for me. This is my personal conviction to do what I do. You have to find your own way of communicating what you know, what you have been taught, how you go about sharing. It's sort of like this platform here that was put together. It originated as an idea. There was a plan, and I'm sure that plan didn't come together overnight. It took a few years before it actually turned into fruition. But that's the action in action. We do this in an oratory way. And even though I use the alphabet to write down words, it's just sort of to draw your attention. So if your mind wanders while I'm talking, that's okay, because that's where those questions will come. The content of what I tell you is really important, because I'm teaching about these connections. My intention is that you get this sense of new direction. And it might not be a new direction, but it might be a fuller direction, so that you understand better what your next step is going to be. And my inflection now refers back to how important this is. And you can see there's your idea, plan, and action there, all around the heart. So our inflection, in other words, what kind of spin do we put on it? Because we have a choice. We can either look at the negative side of it, and we can or look at the positive side of it. But the fact is, they're the opposite side of that same coin. So when we do our thing, like our singing, we direct our songs to the seeds. We have seed songs. We have songs for the fishes. We have songs for everything. What we're doing is we're causing that vibration to occur in another octave, in another frequency. And so that is also connected to our drumming. And we say the drumming is the beat of Mother Earth. It's her heartbeat that we're looking at. And when we do our dance, the dance is when we say we lay our song down. That is the connection. It's kind of like the connections that they have from other countries, where they will say, well, meditation is a certain kind of frequency, and yes, it is. And that singing or that dance is the dance that we dance as an energy dance. And we can do it physically as well. So there's that duality as well, that our hearts rejoice, and when our hearts are rejoicing, we have that frequency, and we're pushing that out all the time. We can do it in ways that are, I put mime down here because that's sort of like we're going through the motion. We don't just do it in our mind. We actually do what it is that we say that we're going to do, that we intend this all to be done well. It gets amplified because I think in ways, like for instance, the performing arts. I think the performing arts in this day and age is the thing that softens all this thing to solidify it. Because when we say we do those songs, that verifies the things that we say. It verifies the things that we do. It multiplies its energy. By the performing arts, what I'm talking about there is it's a really soft way to approach this publicity. The publicity is to understand, we have dancers, we have singers, and those that are convicted to lift up our ceremony, lift up that understanding about what's going on and how things ought to be. What they're doing is they're communicating this in their way. Those performing arts are the ones that will make residential school experience feel that it was a necessary thing to go through. All those people that lost their life, it's not in vain, because they're coming back to us now. They're talking to us. They're still talking to us. And until that's resolved, that trauma will continue. So we need to know that we have these ways of doing it. There's nonverbal ways of doing this as well, like signing, for instance. And I'm not going to go into signing a whole lot, but you can take it from there that this is also a communicative way of giving people subtle understanding. Dreaming. The things that we dream, we share those as communications as well. And that communications, all of those things that are listed here and more, is our oral education, so that the people understand what this is. This is our connection. So we've just been connected from the sky world, all the things that lead to what this good mind is all about, that then leads us to the peace. So when we're operating with the good mind, peace automatically happens. And when peace automatically happens, then we are united not only in spirit, but in mind. I want to break down one word here. And this is the good mind. So I've used three colors here, the purple, the blue, and the green, just so that you can see the bits and pieces of the word. So the KA is exactly like many of the other words I've talked about before. All of these words that have a KA in it is a pronoun, and that pronoun is female, which means that it has strength. And it's been modified from something that came from its natural state. Nigur is now talking about our mind, our consciousness, our intellect, our spirit, and our thought. And the iyo means nice or good. So basically, the word Gatnigunrio means is a good and nice thought. It's a nice spirit. It's a nice intellect. It's a good intellect. It's a conscious intellect, and it's a mindful intellect. So if we choose some words, like through here, these are the words that came directly, these are the components that we are to be putting in action to be able to manifest the things that are positive. So a person who is operating of a good mind is in a state of acceptance. In other words, it's not judgmental. They're using their intuition. This was a natural talent. Intuition was a natural talent that was given to us. It's one of the invisible senses. We're also given understanding so that we are, again, not judgmental. So when we understand something, we have, in fact, absorbed something that was given to us that we didn't understand before. It's kind of like some of the things, even though maybe you didn't ask specifically for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were people who are listening to this right now will say, that just answered a question that I had a long time ago. And so that's the part of understanding. It broadens our acceptance. Person needs to be adaptable. One of the things that we teach our young men when they're going through puberty, in the old way, what they used to do is they used to stand them up. The uncles would take the boys, separate them from the girls, and they would teach them all about the things that were necessary, because they're going now from putting the toys away, basically, to it's not all a game, not a big game anymore. Now it's the reality. All of those features that they used, all of those things that they learned when they were playing games are now going to be used to, say, for instance, go hunting. And all of those understandings that young boys were given. So the women were also, the mothers were actually also taken by their aunties. And they were being taught all the things of being a mother. And so to be adaptable, going back to standing the little boy or the boy going into manhood on the stump, it was to give him that understanding, so to watch those trees. Those trees, when the wind are not blowing, stand still. The stronger the wind is, the more flex it has. And that's the teaching there, is that no matter how strong the wind is, we have to have that adaptability to be able to straighten out when the wind stops flowing again. So things are going to happen. That's what that's all about. Things are going to happen that we don't have any control over. And that's why we have to be adaptable. We have to be adaptable to say, okay, how do we get through this? And we simply bear it. And being forgiving. And so there's a whole teaching about being forgiving that we have. So when it's not easy, but when somebody's really hurt your feelings, it takes a while sometimes to get over. But in our tellings about how this is to occur, the person that it could have even been by accident went to somebody and said, you know, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but I realized that I did hurt your feelings, so I come here to apologize. I come here to ask you to forgive me. And when you do that, what you do is you take that burden off your shoulders, and now you give it to this person that you've offended. And now they've been approached. So now they have to sit with it, because then that burden goes on to them until they say, I forgive you. And so when they say, I forgive you, then the burden is also lifted off both of you. So that has all to do with your ability to care, to be able to do those kind of things, to be generally loving and accepting, loving in a sense that it's caring, and to be genuine about it. You know, all of these things that I've talked about, if we're not genuine about it, it's really going to fall off. It's going to fall away, and we're going to say, this is a nonsense idea, and it won't make sense to you. But when you're genuine, all of a sudden you start to realize where the benefits are coming from. And they'll come to you from being in many, many different ways. Benefits will come to you. You won't even know why someone is doing a kindness for you, or somebody surprises you with something, and just for no reason. And those are the kind of things that manifest when you're genuine. Being positive, it's easier again said than done. But the fact is, the more that we're positive and the more that we look for the good in any situation that happens, we say, oh, this is so terrible. What good is going to come out of this? Something does when we are expecting it. To be of good humor is about being of good mind as well. Because when we laugh, we can laugh at some of the pretty nasty things that happen. And that takes creativity. So that's okay. Being respectful. This is exactly what we're dealing with being respectful to all and everything that's in the universe, including what's in the sky world and things here. Being polite, using our integrity, being kind, and again, being genuine about this, being proactive, embracing change, probably a very, very difficult thing to do. We all tend to resist change because we get comfortable in our state. But when we think outside the box and we push ourselves outside the box, then this is embracing that change. And it comes with new challenges. Being attentive. So being aware, attentive and awareness are almost the same thing, because that's a sense as well. To being responsive. So in other words, sometimes we don't know how to be responsive in sometimes in situations we get in, we don't know how. But those are the guidance. This is the guidance that we ask for, is to how can I respond in an appropriate way, and to do it in a way that's genuine. Excuse me. Believing. So belief is kind of like in the center. It's kind of like the apex. And I told you about the teeter-totter. So if you have negative thoughts and you put all your negative thoughts in one place, it puts the teeter-totter right out of balance. It's kind of like having a heavy person on one side, a big person on one side, and a child on the other side of the teeter-totter. It's out of balance, and that's never going to balance until we bring that attitude towards the center. It's almost as if we have to go past the center before that comes back into balance. But believing that it's already happened is reality. And once we do that, we don't have to fret about something happening. But that's where that belief comes in. In psychology, they call it cognitive dissonance. So that when we're out of balance, and there's that duality again, bringing things into balance. So I'm going to go through these other things like being openness, being patient, being fair, trustworthy, considerable, responsible, being objective, which means basically being observant without judgment, being responsive. I think I've got that in there twice. Energetic flow. So our actions being energetic, not in the sense of physical action, but being energetic in the sense of how we go about doing things. We do it in a way that's fresh, in a way that brings an influence to others. As teachers, the kind of things that they do, the kind of things that they do for us, they do it in an energetic way. It's mind-lifting. It's amusing. It's fun. Generosity is another one. Truly listening. That's when we really go back to that understanding part. And that truly listening is to be genuine about it rather than thinking while a person is talking. You just absorb the words that they're giving you, because they're giving those words because something is maybe heavy with them, or something is disturbing them and they need a different point of view. And that's our advantage by standing in the circle, because wherever we're standing in the circle, what we're looking at is from a different perspective. Tenderness, sharing, being honest, being cooperative, being truthful. And you can recognize all of these things that I mentioned before. It's kind of like the grandfather teachings. This is the expanded view. being compassionate, being confidential. And when somebody says, I'm telling you this in confidence, and you know they're doing it only to people that they think they can trust. And so that leads to that trustworthy part that you have that responsibility. If they ask for confidentiality, that's your responsibility to make sure it stays that way. And reliability, or being reliable. It's being as reliable as the sun is reliable and rising at the same time as it did last year today. That is reliability. And to be able to put out that energy no matter what comes in your way. The sun doesn't stop shining just because it's overcast. No, it still keeps on shining. It knows that the clouds will eventually clear. So when we're using the good mind, what we're automatically doing is we're enacting this peace. So these are the things to think about to be able to be productive, no matter what kind of adverse situation that we have. We can rely on all of these, shall we say, situations here now to bring us to that piece of peacefulness, which will eventually automatically bring us to unity of strength. I want to share with you the next screen here is about John Mohawk, and this is how he described it. He said, our story holds that we have much that we should be happy about. And evidence of this great good fortune is the manifestations of the gifts of nature. But even these gifts of nature are part of a grander scheme. These are ultimately the gifts of the sky world. Those who have conceived of and created that which we experience as nature. This is a natural state. We are now able to see the evidence of this good fortune, which positions us in a special relationship to that which is called nature. We are now urged to do more than give gratitude. We, as humans, are urged to join in that sacred act. That means to take action. And if you can't think of anything to talk about, I put up this, in light of this knowledge, let us all align our collective capacity and our understanding and purpose. Let us define common threads in original people's models of understanding. So I'm going to turn this off now. And go back to our screen. So that was a lot to think about. And
well, yeah, it was.
Or questions.
I think there's some comments here, that are that go back to, I guess, your conversations more in the beginning of the conversation. Just we need more helpers to talk to our kids and teenagers and tell them what they're good at. And I love that part of the conversation because this being Pride Month, right, and just knowing that there are all of these different ways of celebrating people. And I like that you said it's not about the sex of the person, right? It really is about the pride of who you are. and that you can actually be. And so when you were talking, I Googled why it's called pride. And, of course, there's all of the, I guess ways or that they refer to the Western world, right? And that kind of context. But it just makes sense to me, how you were saying, like your responsibilities and how you grow into who you are. And, being a part of Grandmother's Voice and what we've created with our community and the people here, being in your presence, like Heather Bombery just said, Nyoa, you're so amazing, Tehahenteh. And you really are. You really are. And just how you share with us. And this is the purpose, right? To being able to come here, come together so that we can learn from our elders, so that we can learn again, remember, like Grandmother Renee always says, remembering our original instructions to honor ourselves so that we can live how you say. You just shared with us to be able to live and know that we are taken care of in every way, living in balance, right? Living in appreciation and gratitude. I love you. I love everything you just shared. It inspires me. And I think it inspires everybody. Just, listening, and enormous wisdom. Thank you, Irene just said, and I think it's just, we need this right now. So much.
There are many heavy hearts across this country right now. Original people, our allies, and that's what we need to be sharing. That this one, we need to understand that it's not over. We will be finding many other things, but that's the way we work towards closure. This is our reconciliation. And what we really are praying for is that we get those who have not been converted as allies yet to say, think about it. You have children too. And how would you feel if your kids were taken away because all they ever wanted was to come home? Well, now they're home in a sense, but it's still, we as the human being who is still alive, we're the ones left here. We're the ones left with that sorrow to care. But we are caring. And we have a responsibility to all of those families that are, we say, their minds and their emotions right now are on the floor. They're on the ground. And it's going to take a lot to bring it back up. But those are our responsibilities. The understanding of condolence is this. We talk about the word, and I don't know if I've done it on these presentations, but our word for family is gahwajere. There's that ga, that means it has strength. I talked about that pronoun before. The hwa part is wrapped together, like it's like a parcel. Zir goes back to the connection, the star connections. That's the spark of our life. And the E at the end is how that exists. So our families exist as a metaphoric fire. And we have all of those logs on the fire like this, they're burning away. And when these traumas come to us, it says there's a dark figure that comes, and that dark figure is carrying a big stick, and it smashes that fire, and the logs go flying in different directions. And it gives us the responsibility, the ones on the other side of the fire, we say, to go to that family and to collect those logs, and we put them back on the fire. And it says, when we see the smoke rising, that we know the family fire is burning again, which means that's the hurt that we have again that dissipates, goes into the atmosphere and disperses that way. So to get closure, that's what we need to do for all of those people, because they're in that state. Their fire has been dismantled. And so our responsibility is to help heal that with our strength, with our thoughts, with our love. And so those are the connections that we have and why we have those connections.
Amazing. Just amazing. Maybe that's the name of our center. I don't know.
Skana.
Skana, right?
Yeah. Meaning peace. Yeah.
Yes. It's always so wonderful to see you, Uncle. Always so wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us today. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Okay. Yes. Awesome.
Happy. See ya.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.